Well, welcome, Hilary. Fantastic to have Hilary Taylor with me today. And Hilary is married to Martin. She leads the Smaller Churches Connection in the Baptist Union of Great Britain. Um, there are, I think, 68, is it 68% now of churches or 58%? 58%, isn't it?
56. 56.
56. Okay, I'm seeing different reports in different places, but okay. So 56% of Baptist churches are classed as smaller churches. I think that's 40 or under, isn't it? If it's got a membership of 40 or under.
Yeah.
And so Hillary's done some amazing work there with Small Churches Connections. I think you've been doing that since 2003. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah,
Started.
long time.
Yeah, it's a very long time. So Kat Hilary has a lot of experience in this area. She is also the author of the book A Toolbox for Smaller Churches, a spiritual and practical guide to small church life, which was published, thank you, which was published in 2007, which is an excellent book that has been used many, many times to help the life and health of smaller churches. So thank you, Hilary, for agreeing to doing this today, because this is going to help me in terms of my presidential year and just getting an understanding of what's happening with smaller churches across the union, the Baptist Union. But also, it's going to help me with my dissertation, which I'm just finishing at the moment, which is about healthy leadership for healthy church growth. And so I'm really interested in this subject, especially because we're living in really exciting times, I believe, at the moment. And you'll know as well as I will that we've prayed for years and years, decades and decades for a move of God where we start to see the statistics in church attendance going up again. And something's happening now, which is being reported not just by the Bible Society, but also by secular newspapers and in the media generally. So it is a very exciting time. And I feel like it's a time where it's really important, therefore, that we are the best kind of church communities across the UK that we can be to facilitate and disciple all those that are coming in. So I'm really interested to hear things from your perspective and from small churches' perspective across the UK, especially in terms of Baptist churches, which is the area that I'm looking at, of course. So I'm going to jump in, and then you can do lots of the talking now.
Thank
so,
you.
Hilary, I'm going to ask you. First question I wanted to ask you is, tell me something about the small churches connections or network. I think you call it connections, don't you, rather than network? How does it help small churches be healthy? And you can define what you mean by healthy. And does it help them grow and have an impact?
Well, big question. So yes, I hope so. Is the short answer. So yes, Small Church Connection was set up in London in 2003 because the small churches said we really need some help here. They were falling through the holes, through the loops, as it were, and just need that extra bit of help. So the connection was set up there, and yes, we just put together a whole set of advice and events, celebrations. We did road shows, resource days, and we did all kinds of ways, different ways to sort of to help the small churches in different areas within church life. But as part of that, I joined up with the Baptist Union at 2005 to get involved with a more national thing. And I'm a big picture person, so I loved all that. Just to work alongside, rub shoulders with those who've been practitioners a long time, longer than I had, but a countrywide view, and was involved with the people there. So again, to see how small churches were being helped on a more national level was really helpful. Since working more specifically, really, with a national view, since 2022, really, in detail, we've put up small church hubs, and I think that is going to be key, really, for growth and just general keeping going and regular encouraging, because the small churches, they do struggle with all the stuff, and we found in our working alongside, we found sort of 6 different categories of small church. I'll just sort of let you know. So you get the churches that are small because they're new, they're pioneering, just set out. There's a small group just been planted and it's exciting. That you have small churches, but they are significant within their population. and also significant because of the work they're doing. Many small churches do amazing community work, so they're small but significant. You get the small churches that are growing. You have many places, especially we found at the edge of London, a very transient population, and that's true many places around the country. So the church will be growing, and there'll be a lot of throughput, but a lot of people will be moving on for jobs and various other reasons, but new people coming in. So the numbers remain small on paper, but actually there's been a lot of movement and a lot of growth within that time. You get those small churches who are small and content, they're happy, ticking over, we're fine, thank you. You get some of those. You also get those who are small and struggling. They kind of want help, not quite sure how they want help. They know they need change, but change is a big thing, and not sure they want to change, but they know they need help. And you get that kind of difficult conversation going on. And then you get the small churches who actually just want to die a good death. And that's not usually the way the connection jump in at that point. That's more of a regional minister kind of level job, and the ministry department rather than us. But yeah, so we've found, I'm sure there are other categories too, but they're the main
So
ones
that's
that we've
five
found.
categories now.
It's six, yeah.
Also, I might have missed one then. So new pioneering,
Yeah.
growing. Uh,
Small but significant was the second one. Small
which
but
one?
significant. Small but significant.
That's what I missed. Okay, thank you. Small but
Yeah.
significant. Okay.
So I'm sure there are others, but they're the ones. But also the thing is with this is that one size doesn't fit all, and
Yeah.
each of those categories need a different approach. So that means that as a team, we have to listen a lot. We ask a lot of questions. We say, where are you at? What is God saying? What is your plan? And actually, when you have conversations, it's very obvious that the areas they need help in is with the legal stuff.
Mm.
And things like treasuring, as well as all the safeguarding and the building maintenance. My goodness, some of these small churches have huge buildings, which is bonkers as far as I'm concerned. I think they should be a bit more real about where to meet. Sometimes church buildings are really useful, and some are just a drain on money and resources. My particular small church that I was in for quite a lot of years, we never owned a building. We just borrowed space in a Church of England and then into a youth centre, which they're still meeting there now. But it meant that we have money to go into ministry and mission and not just into buildings. And I think for small churches, the building is really a heavy burden. And also, as I say, all the legal stuff that we have to do these days, it's just a distraction from actually the job is getting on reaching people for Jesus and making disciples. That is the key.
I
But
remember
there's
you saying to me,
stuff.
there's no difference between if you're a small church of 40 or your church of 1,000. You still got to do all the same administrative work in terms of policies and safeguarding, etc.
Absolutely. And also it's because basically a church is a public building. If you have a church building, it's a public building. Anybody can walk in on a Sunday. So then we need the same legal compliance as the swimming pool and the library and the town hall. And churches don't get that often. They're thinking, well, we're a church, isn't that different? And actually, in this day and age, no, it's not.
Well,
So you get a small group of people who are either skilled or not skilled in the things that you need them to be skilled in. So when we talk to small churches in all those categories, and saying, what would ease your burden? What would, encourage you to actually keep your focus on Jesus and on the goal of reaching disciples? They say, we really need help with this stuff. If it could be lifted from our shoulders or helped or shared, one treasurer across two churches, or joint safeguarding leads or whatever, that would make a huge difference. And then they can focus on the job of making disciples, which is what we're here for.
well, that's brilliant. So you mentioned the sort of hubs thing. How does that work then in terms of answering some of those issues of the kind of legal compliance, buildings, as well as other things like in terms of discipleship and evangelism and things like that?
Yeah, the hubs, some of them are getting started. Some we've done, I think it's 8 different meetings already. So around the country, people come to me and say, could we be a hub host, which is great. So basically, once we've got a host church in place, And then we invite all the smaller churches within half an hour's drive, essentially.
Wow.
Slightly different in London because you can get a long way in half an hour, on a tube. But yeah, essentially half an hour's drive as a host. So that means that when we do things together, they can either do joint projects or they can borrow people, they can share resourcing, they can share ministry, however that looks. It's practical because they're actually not further away than half an hour, rather than the other side of the country or the other side of the association or whatever. It's much easier to have a local thing going on. So we have met and we have had a number of discussions. I think just start off with saying what you're up to, because churches don't know what each other are doing on the ground. It's
Yeah.
just, there's not that communication that goes on.
Mm.
And when they find out, they go, "Oh, this is fascinating, it's amazing. And
Mm.
we need to know about that, or can you help us with
Mm.
this?" Or there's that
Mm.
joint sort of cross-pollination that starts happening.
Mm.
But also we've had times about talking about how do we reach out to the community. And we've had gifting workshops, interestingly, because that's what Alan Hirsch was talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we'll get into
so
that.
yeah, so it's just a whole range of different things that we do within the hub gatherings. But obviously the key is to connect, particularly the leaders, but key people in the churches with each other, and there can be that ongoing support, between the gatherings.
Yeah,
So,
that's fantastic.
on Hub particularly, they've put up a WhatsApp group now for all the church leaders, and they're
Mm.
sharing items for prayer, and they're
Mm.
meeting together. And the breakfast is always popular to meet and then
Mm.
pray. So they're doing things in between and borrowing help. Come and help us with our
That's
X, Y,
brilliant.
Z.
No, that's brilliant. So it's
So
like a 5 or 6 churches will be working together. That's
sometimes it's eight or 10.
wow.
Yeah, within the hub, it depends on the area around the country. So our
Mm.
furthest north is Leyland in Lancashire. And our furthest south is Devon. So yeah, it's a whole breadth across the country.
So did you find yourself doing quite a lot of traveling then?
Oh yeah, it's great, great fun, and
And
meeting
obviously,
all kinds of awesome people.
no, that's fantastic. Um,
Mhm.
okay, well, so yes, I mean that sounds like there's a lot that's helping churches sort of be healthier in terms of both their kind of discipleship, evangelism, but also on the kind of practical administrative side as well. That's really good. And impacting the community. So tell me something about your book, A Toolbox for Small Churches, a spiritual and practical guide for small churches. How does that come into sort of the resource and how does that help? What need does that mean?
Well, yes, at the time it was published in 2007, which is quite a long time ago now. But it's all good stuff. Obviously, you can keep using it and dipping it. It's very much a very practical book. It's a dipping in and out book. Each chapter has 3 sections to it. One is all a Bible base. Why do we do this? Like example, the first chapter is worship. Like, why do we worship? Where do we worship? How do we worship? Who do we worship? And all that from solid Bible stuff. And then the second section of each chapter is a kind of a what does it actually look like on the ground? So the
Mm.
second section is stories from, again, small churches all around the country saying, actually, this is what it's like for us worshipping on a Sunday morning with half a dozen people in this big building or whatever. There's several different scenarios in each chapter. So actually rooted in practical, this is what it's like on the ground. And the third section of each chapter is basically the tools. It's a toolbox, it's got tools in, and it's all about often questionnaires or discussion starters, scenarios to discuss. There's all kinds of different tools within the toolbox, but on that chapter subject. And there's about 9 chapters in the book. So it was published. It's God's idea, not mine, as the best things are. That I needed to write this book. I had help from people in the Baptist family, which was great. Um, and I published 4,000, and there's 3 left on my bookshelf. So hopefully there's somewhere around the country, around the world, actually,
Yeah,
quite a lot are
yeah,
abroad,
that's brilliant.
helping. Yeah, and I do bump into people who said, "Oh, I've got your book and it's been really helpful." The other sort of twist to it, which was rather very encouraging to me, was that I was very conscious that a lot of people go into Spurgeon's and other Baptist colleges from large churches. They grow up
Mm.
there, they're impacted, converted, they have their decision, they're going to go into leadership, and they're sponsored by the bigger churches. And they're often put into small ones and wonder why it's all so
Mm.
difficult.
Yes.
There doesn't seem to be any teaching within the colleges about how different small church life is. It's not a big church with less people. It's a whole different animal
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with Spurgeon's, a mission person at the time, and they were so excited about my book and said, this is just what we need. So I gave them a whole shed load. And up till they closed last year, they were giving a copy to every first year student in Spurgeon's.
Oh,
So that
brilliant.
was really encouraging for me, but also just it's a different thing. It's not a big church with less
No.
people. It's a whole different way of
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
So hopefully that has helped and not just gathering dust on bookshelves somewhere.
No,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. I mean, it looks amazing. I think it's the kind of things that leaders really need to be able to practically put things, to change things.
Mhm.
Thank you. So on to Alan Hirsch then, because part of this dissertation is to look at, is there anything that Alan Hirsch with his sort of 5Q kind of idea can actually help our kind of British Baptist scene with? And I'm quite interested from your perspective as a small church, um, from the small church angle, how you would see that in terms of with all your experience. So the third question is, does Alan Hirsch's definition of an apostolic environment offer a style of leadership which might catalyze and facilitate growth in a Baptist setting? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, it's,
Mm.
it's the answer.
Mm.
So I think a lot of people don't see leadership as apostolic.
Mhm.
I, we churn people out often out of colleges as pastors and teachers, or
Mhm.
they're teachers because they get preaching practice. I think not all of them are pastors, though they're put
Mhm.
into that position, into a
Mhm.
church, and there is this huge expectation, uh,
Mhm.
perhaps especially in a small church, if there have been not all that many of them, but they've finally afforded a minister, they've got a home mission grant or something, and a person comes in, they go, "Phew, it's been hard graft, but good, you can do it now," which is it's not the point, and that's not church, I don't think.
Yeah.
So, the people need to be very aware of their own gifting, and especially the new minister coming in, who nobody's a jack of all trades. Everybody has a primary gifting. Everyone has that gift from God to be able to, the way they're wired, the way they
Mhm.
think, uh, and then, how that comes through into ministry.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of finding out what yeah giftings your minister has or your new person coming in, and also being very aware of how the gifting is spread around the church in the leadership team and abroad, in the wider congregation. And most churches don't really know, aren't really sure, don't think about it much. I mean, Alan Hirsch did a great job, and yeah, I've read several of his books. But Paul thought of it first and laid it all out to the church
Yes.
in Ephesus,
Exactly.
saying you need to sort yourselves out, and because not everybody is good at everything, and everybody needs to be part of the body. Everybody's got a gift. Are you using what God has given you and how you're wired? So yeah, we do these gifting workshops, and it's just been really good to go around, particularly the hubs. We've done it in various individual churches as well, and big churches and small churches. We're happy to do it for anyone. But more recently, we've been doing it within a hub concept, which is again really interesting because you
Yeah.
get the mix or 6 or 8 churches getting together, and so we do a section on teaching about why this is important. And then we give everybody a questionnaire which they fill in. It's not an onerous thing. It's more of an indicator than definitive. Um, but it gives people an idea of how they're wired. And for some people, it's been an absolute light bulb moment. Some people
Wow.
have gone, oh, this is why I find this job so difficult. And you
Mm.
find, talking to so many churches over the years, at all sizes, I'm sure, that you get a lot of what I call square pegs in round holes.
Mm.
And it's people who do jobs who don't quite fit properly, but they've said, "Oh,
Mm.
I'll have a go," or "There's no one else," or "I'll do it for a while," or up, be willing or not, volunteer. Um, and so you get this pattern of jobs that are done by people. And again, you've got to have, yeah, a range of the gifts. So I think
Mm.
to have, ideally, you'd have them all, have all the fivefold ministries. But you need an organizer. I would always add an organizer within the mix. That's an administrative person who gets stuff done.
Yeah.
You need one of those in every church, I would say. But yeah, people aren't very aware often of their gifting. Or yeah, people just put into the wrong job. So I know a lady who was a teacher, loved teaching. She was a good teacher. But there was a space for a secretary and nobody else stood up. And she said, "Oh, all right, then I'll do it until somebody else comes along." And of course, nobody else did because she was in the role. And she's still there 10 years later. And you go, "Oh,
Wow.
what are you doing? What are you doing?" So,
So
yeah,
I like the way you're saying, obviously, you've got these fivefold gifts in Ephesians 4, but you're also saying there are other gifts that need to also prop those up in a sense, which is kind of the administration. And I think you've said helps in the past as well, haven't you? And things like that. Yeah.
yeah, I think we need them all. I mean, there's so many gifts of the Spirit. You look in 1 Corinthians 12 and other places, you get the healing and the miracles, and absolutely we need all of that.
Mm.
Um, but the basic ministry gifts that Jesus gave, interesting, not the Spirit, that Jesus gave,
Interesting.
as a foundation, really, of how to build a church or how a church should be. So I think if you look hard enough, you've got one of each gift within most congregations. And if you haven't, then you buy it in or you borrow it in, which
Mm.
is again a good idea with a hub situation.
Yes.
And the other thing is to get the groups of people together. So if you've got a group of evangelists, for example, like there's one in each church, suddenly you've got a group of 6 who could work together locally because you're all within half an hour's drive, so you're all local-ish. Or a group of prophets who either aren't listened to or they there's only one in each church, for example. Again, they can gather together and they can listen prophetically together to what God said
Mm.
for the bigger area or the town or
Mm.
the bigger area where the churches are. Um,
Mm.
so I think there's all kinds of knock-on advantages, I
Mm.
think, of doing that. But yeah, I think that you should look at each person in the church and say, what is your gifting? Are
Yeah.
you growing in that? If you're in the congregation, are you saying to the leadership, I have this gift, how can I serve? Which is what we should all be asking, how can we
Yeah.
serve? But knowing what you've got, and I think Alan Hirsch just puts it very easily, succinctly. I love the page where, he's got his diagram, but he uses very up-to-date words. I know sometimes he makes the zone up,
Yes.
but he uses very, very up-to-date, very perhaps more easily understandable
Yeah.
description of how
Yeah.
each gift functions. And I
He
find that,
almost shows them in a secular context, doesn't he?
yes, yeah, it's
That
very
yeah.
corporate.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, that's the sheet that we photocopy or we have tweaked it. And the churches, the hubs at the gifting workshops have a copy of that. And it's
I'd
very,
love to see your tweak on that, actually, Hilly. That'd be really
yes,
interesting.
I will
Yeah.
send that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. This sounds amazing, to be honest. It sounds like you've really kind of practicalized through the hubs a way of making sure all the gifts are working and supporting different churches. And I can see that smaller churches would really appreciate that. Big churches sometimes I think, well, we can just get on with it ourselves. And we sometimes forget about working together. But
Great
I
stuff.
think, small churches, it's actually really, it sounds really exciting, actually. Yeah. Mm. Um, yeah, so let me ask you, so I'll ask you the next question. So from your experience of working with smaller Baptist churches, how do you understand healthy church growth? You can break all those things down if you want, the healthy, the church and the growth. And how do you think smaller churches understand healthy church growth? So take when you answer that question, take into account, congregational growth, but also local impact. And also, you can even define what you mean by the word growth as well. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah. Okay, start at the beginning. Um, Yeah, healthy. So I do quite a lot of preaching around the smaller churches, and one thing I do bang on about and preach a lot about is what does health look like? And just underlining the fact that it's not about the numbers. People get focused on numbers. Oh, we're only small. Oh, we can't do this. Oh, we used to. And I get a lot of that, and it's just very frustrating. And so I'd say that actually health is not about numbers. Church isn't about numbers. It's about how healthy you are. So I use a triangle. Again, not original, but it's a triangle to say we need to have the up and the in and the out in
Mm,
perspective. And I give out triangles there. Isosceles, equilateral, whatever the word is, triangles with equal angles. So we have the connection with God is the up, but the connection, in within the congregation, within the church is also really key, as well as you've got to have the out, you've got
mm,
to be out in the community. So you've got to hold those three in tension. I was
mm.
making it very simple, but I don't do complicated.
Yeah,
So holding those things in tension is just really important to kind of get those balance right. Because again, churches do one really well or the other really well. A lot of churches, I would say, are doing a lot of community stuff. It's brilliant. It's social action and loving and welcoming, all that stuff, brilliant. But sometimes there's not the discipleship that goes with that. And sometimes, new people come in, they get, they come to faith, which is wonderful, they get baptized perhaps, and it's like, well, you're on your own now, or you can join a house group if you like. There isn't that intentional discipleship, and we're all on a journey. But
yeah,
when we really need, hand holding. But also, your new converts are your best evangelists because they're
yeah,
just of faith, and
yeah.
so I think that's another opportunity often lost, saying, "Oh, you can't go out and do evangelism until you've gone through this course, or you've got to have a year or whatever." They're
Mm.
the best people right off the bat. They
Yeah.
did, they just found Jesus, they're on fire, they're the best evangelists. And I
Mm,
don't think that's taken advantage of enough, to
mm.
be honest. But it's
That's
just
really
saying you've
interesting.
got to have this health, it's got to be
Yeah. So
think
this health is having some kind of way, you're saying, of obviously it's health in different areas, but when you're coming to the community out, some kind of way that when people are coming in, they are actually discipled. Um, that would make them healthy then, and that they feel confident to go out and share the gospel. They're released into getting on with things, kind of thing.
exactly, yeah. In a recent hub, we asked those questions of how people get from knowing nothing, like the Angle scale, knowing
Hmm.
nothing to not only coming to faith, but your discipleship journey. How does that happen? What have you got in the church that meets that need, that like stepping stones
Yeah,
up that ladder?
yeah,
Um, what are the opportunities for reaping? Actually having that opportunity that um, on being asked
yeah.
do you want to give your life to Jesus? We don't have altar
Mm,
calls so much anymore as we used to.
mm,
What are the opportunities you have for people to actually make a decision? And then after that, what comes after that? How can their growth keep going? So again, that was good, a good healthy hub discussion of how that works or doesn't work now, and just promoting the idea and getting people involved and thinking, actually, perhaps we need to tweak what we do.
yeah.
So yeah, it's all part of the big health thing, which hopefully, yeah, it'll all bring growth. I think that, yeah, perhaps churches don't look at the how do people get from eh,
Yeah.
zero to
In
faith
an intentional
beyond.
way. Yeah, yeah,
So that's where your growth will come in, because
yeah,
somebody needs to think about how we move people from zero to conversion and beyond. And
yeah.
yeah, that needs to be thought out more. So that's where your growth comes in, I guess. People just working that out.
And I guess you wouldn't be against numerical growth, would you? So,
Not at all.
so I think when you're saying healthy, it's really interesting what you're saying, because you're saying if you're healthy, you'll have this kind of, upwards, inwards, and outwards, but it will include discipling people that then they're aware of kind of sharing their faith, which I guess then in a natural way brings them to be healthy, but also produces numerical growth in a sense as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't like Church of 1,000 or even 500. I personally love the small church. So I would say, if you get to 100, then plant a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Have
Yeah.
another congregation, a place that there isn't a witness at the moment, rather than grow lots of people in one place. I'd say
Mm.
let's go out and do stuff. Let's plant a
Yeah.
new church. I'd be all for that. Um, yeah, it's just it's really interesting to watch how different churches approach that and what they think numerical growth looks like and
Yeah.
what a good, because group dynamics change at certain points, don't they, naturally?
Mm. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you. So fifth question. Uh, do you think can Hirsch's 5Q model catalyze healthy growth in smaller churches? Because obviously you're thinking smaller churches through discipleship. Do you think it can do that? Do you think there are elements of strengths and weaknesses there? What's your view on all of that?
Yeah, I do agree that it can promote growth. I think if it's handled properly, and it's all about leaders, if they're not aware of the 5Q thing or just not thinking about the Ephesians 4, that it's not sort of top of your list or priorities or the way you view things. So that in itself will be helpful if they read the book a bit. But yeah, I think when new people come to faith, um, I would give them a questionnaire or talk to them about how they are wired, what they do, what comes naturally. Our questionnaire is quite easy to fill in, really. So the answers are, it's like, here's a statement. So the answers are, is this always true about you? Is it sometimes true about you? Is it never true about you? So it's very standard, it's quite easy to fill
Yeah.
in, not difficult. But it does give that indicator of what comes naturally, what you do, what you don't do, and knowing what you're not good at is as important. But
Mhm.
knowing where your strengths are, and I think if new Christians can, um, it's not labeling people, but it's understanding how they're wired, because they'll hopefully be full of fire and be on, wonderful. And how can I serve? I've got this new family. This is so exciting. I want to be part. I want to belong here. Um, so actually, the best way to say, how about serving in this area? Rather than saying, what's your passion? Go and do it. This is amazing. Because some church leaders have that view as well, which is great to a point. But I think it's understanding how your people are wired, especially your new people who you don't know, who they just come to faith. Um,
Mm.
finding out what their gifting is, and therefore they need to be mentored. Again, you
Mm.
need to find out who's got
Mm.
gifting within the church already, and then you can
Mm.
have like a buddy system or something, but they need to be mentored. And that the whole idea of a church leader, a minister, um, is to equip the church for works of service, as it says. So they're
Yeah.
not supposed to do it all. They're supposed to
Yeah.
have their primary gifting and then mentor somebody in their primary gifting, but also finding out who others' primary gifting is and making sure that they are mentoring others
Yeah.
in that gifting. And that's where your growth comes. That really helps discipleship. The
Mm.
whole thing is just rolls together.
Interlinked. Yeah.
It's handled well. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. But it's all
Mm.
about who your church leaders are, what their experience is, what have they read the book? Do they think it's a good idea? Do they, it's all that kind of, that's always true about anything, I guess.
Yeah. So I can hear you saying there that the leadership is really important here, that the way they are thinking about things is very
Yeah,
important.
absolutely.
Do you think there's some unhelpful ways to think about things as leaders as well as helpful? I'm sure you've got a few opinions.
Yes, I've seen it all. Yeah, so I went to a
Actually,
church
let me
recently
ask
who,
you as well. Let me push you a little
sorry.
bit further as well there. Just do you think that there's anything within our kind of Baptist way of thinking? Obviously, I'm generalizing a bit here, but our British Baptist way of thinking that maybe hinders healthy church growth a bit. Is there anything you think that's kind of you're coming up against a bit? You think has to be changed in the way that we think as leaders, I guess, and churches? Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a long list. Uh, Probably. No, it's yeah, it is all about churches are quite set in their ways. And to say, how about doing a new thing? Some of them just don't want to. It was the church I went to visit recently, and they didn't pray together. They had no prayer meetings. So I said, well, how are you listening to what God's saying? And they said, well, we kind of don't.
This,
And
this
then
is
they
what
were
I
wondering,
want.
yeah, and they were wondering why they were kind of, just
Yeah.
stepping into a bit of a club and going to close soon.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's the whole, is there that excitement about God? Sometimes that's missing. Sometimes it's we know how to do this, let's turn the handle. We know how to do services, it's all fine. And we have a cup of coffee and we chat afterwards. And often we spend longer chatting than we do in the service. And then there aren't often this the experience of, obviously I've been around preaching a lot of churches when I'm welcomed on a Sunday. There isn't often a saying, well, that you can pray afterwards. I'm here for people who want prayer afterwards, or if anything moves you during the service, especially through the word, there's people to pray with you afterwards. Now, some do, some just dash off for coffee.
Mm.
Most churches are hospitable. I found one that actually said on their website, if you want a cup of coffee, which is only served once a fortnight, bring your own mug. That was a bit of a surprise. Um, but most churches are good at
Yeah.
hospitality. They're very welcoming. But I think what also is missing is that they have a number of these groups who come, and maybe lunch or coffee or craft or Lego or whatever your group is. People say, oh, but they're not coming to church. And there doesn't seem to be that those like practice conversations
Mm.
about going to the groups, chatting with people, and again talking about faith, and maybe saying, how about a coffee, rather than,
Mm.
oh, come to church next Sunday.
Yeah.
It also works. But the friendly getting alongside, but talking faith.
Yes. So
I
how to build those relationships in a natural way that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because I think people talk to people, or people will say, "Oh, my friends, they're not Christians, but they know I go to church." Or they know I can't do things on a Sunday because I'm going to church. But people talk about church, I think, much more easily than talk about Jesus,
Yeah.
talk about their faith or the difference that he
Mm.
has made. I'm going through the situation, I
Yeah.
really know his presence, or I prayed and this happened, or,
Mm.
there's not that many conversations
Yeah.
along those lines. That's again a sweeping statement, generalization, but these are
Sure.
experiences that I've had.
Sure. Yeah. So
So
almost a reluctance to freely share faith in a natural way, kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, but I think there is that reluctance to give people some rope. I recognize
Mm.
this gift in you, off you go.
Yeah. So leaders almost holding the reins tight, not kind of
Mm.
releasing people
I
into
think
things.
that it can be quite threatening,
Hmm.
to be honest, because you're not in control anymore. Oh,
Mm.
things are happening I'm not sure about, and I'm not there to oversee it. Oh,
Yeah.
but then it's, how well do you know your people? Do you love and trust your people? In a smaller church, it's more about relationship. So everybody knows everybody, which can be good and bad. In a church of 100 or 200, you can't know everybody. You can't. So again, it's even more important, I would say, in bigger churches, to make sure to get people in the right gifting groups, because that can be an absolute majorly wonderful thing, to have your prophets praying regularly about the way forward for the church. That can be awesome. And then you've got your groups of evangelists going out, and they bring people in, and then your groups who are teachers and shepherds, they can
Mm.
be welcoming and discipling the people who come in.
Mm.
So the whole thing, can
Mm.
go really well. If you've got more people, you hopefully got more people in each group,
Mm.
well, gifting group, to make
Mm.
an impact. In a smaller church, you might have one or
Yeah.
two. Often when we do
That could
gifting,
feel isolated, couldn't it? Yeah. And
yeah, often when we
misunderstood.
do work, yeah, often when we do workshops, we divide people into groups, and often there's some missing. There's nobody who's gifting, primary gifting, it turns out to be often evangelism, like there's nobody sat under the evangelism sign, um, or, or a prophet. Most people would say they're shepherds or teachers, because
Mm.
that's people understand that. And we do teaching within the workshop. What does this actually mean, and how do they actually supposed to work? And let's look at what the Bible says, obviously, about different giftings and stuff. So I think there is a lack of understanding or
Yeah.
teaching. Sometimes I do wonder what is taught on a Sunday.
Mm. That's really, really helpful. That's really, really helpful. Yeah. No, that's very good. Thank you. This is fascinating. I think it's very, very exciting in terms of that kind of whole idea of, you know, if your smaller churches kind of working together to actually build the kingdom and see all the gifts working. So I think you've really helped with a very practical way to do that. Any last thoughts about? Do you think there's any weaknesses in Hirsch's model at all?
I think if it needs to be adapted, it's like all things.
Yeah,
It needs to be adapted to where you are and
yeah,
how it fits your area,
yeah,
uh, demographically, but also who have you got in the church, and how that works. I think the fivefold obviously is, yeah, as I said, Paul's idea, not his idea.
yeah,
But I think if it works well, uh,
yeah,
it really can be good. But the whole point that Paul was saying, that it's to equip each other, equip each other
yes,
to work
yes,
for Jesus.
yes,
And the last, that Ephesians 4 verse 16 is one of my favorite verses, but saying basically that everybody has a part to play. And if everybody does it well, the whole
yes,
thing grows.
yes,
And he says, and it's loving. And
yes.
you're helping each other, you're building each other,
Mm,
this basis of love and relationship within the
yeah,
church. And that, I think that was what Paul was saying to them. You need to be like this as a
yeah,
church,
yeah,
because they were all, a bit dysfunctional, weren't they? Um,
yes,
so using
yeah,
that as a model is good. Yeah, Alan Hirsch has taken a good piece of scripture, um,
yeah,
and embroidering it, and building on it and exploring it a bit more. Absolutely, it's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all there in Ephesians.
But I love that way you say that, yeah, what is key is that, well, two things. One, we have to be adaptable. You can't just plonk something, isn't it? You've got to
Yeah,
be adaptable. And it sounds like that's what you've been doing over the years, taking that kind of Ephesians 4 idea and making it work in smaller church contexts and things like that. But also, I think the other thing that I hear you saying is that love is really important. That actually it's a challenge to love because you're going to have to be dependent on each other, because different people have different gifts, and so you're dependent on the whole body doing its work together. So it's actually building us in a healthy way to love each other as well and to cooperate together, which I think is really, really good. Yeah, thank you so much, Billy. This has been amazing. It's really good to get a bit more
yeah.
insight into what you're doing, across the country, which is obviously affects 50% of Baptist churches. So, which is really important. Did we say 50%? Did we say over nearly 50%? Is that right?
56. 56.
56, so over 50% now. Yeah, I'm so used to saying it's 50%. So it's changed
No,
now.
really, no, not anymore.
Not anymore. So that's really, really important. And my personal hope is that as people are doing the things that you're saying, having healthy leadership mindset, releasing people into their gifts and
Yeah,
building, healthy churches, that growth will mean both, personal character growth and growth in the, as you call, the inward, but also it will cause growth in the outward, that more people will come in. We will see, as we are seeing now, numbers going up in terms of baptisms and attendance and people knowing and loving Jesus and serving the kingdom of God and hopefully helping our world at the moment, which seems to be quite chaotic, doesn't it? So, so yeah, thank you so much, Julia. I really, really
okay.
appreciate it. Yeah. And yeah, all the best with what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Always good to see you.
Brilliant.
Hope your presidential year goes well.
Thank you very much.